Wonderful. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to both committee members and members of the public to this Strategy Working Committee meeting. Please ensure that your devices or cell phones are switched off or on silent mode whilst the meeting is in progress. If a cell phone does interrupt the meeting, we will just pause so that voices are still able to be heard. This meeting is being held in the Suffolk Wellness Centre in the Martinborough Town Hall. It has been live streamed and will be available to view on Council's YouTube channel. The emergency exits for this room are the door that you came in at the end and the exit behind me. We do need to evacuate the building. Please use one of these exits and assemble outside by the playground. Please remain at the assembly area until the building has been confirmed clear. In the unlikely and rather unfortunate event we experience any unruly or intimidating behaviour during the course of this meeting, we will adjourn until it is safe for us to reconvene. Members of Council or this committee, the staff will congregate in the office area behind me if this action is necessary. Hopefully it is not. So I invite Councillor Ealams, please, to open the meeting with a karakia.
Thanks, Chair. Kia ora te marino, kia whakapapa pōnamu te moana, hei pūrahi mā toto, sorry, technology. Yeah, right. Pūrahi mā toto e te rangi nei, araha atua, araha mai, tato e tato katoa. May peace be widespread, may the sea be like greenstone, pathway for all of us this day. Let us show respect for each other, for one another, bind us all together.
Thank you.
Apologies.
Do we have any apologies today? I believe we have an apology from Councillor Plummer and from Councillor Gray for lateness this morning. And Violet as well. So do I please have a councillor who will move to accept the apologies? Councillor. And do I have a seconder, please? Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. All those against, please say no. Motion is carried. Are there any conflicts of interest anyone needs to declare this morning? Perfect. Acknowledgements and tributes. Thank you, Councillor Ealams.
Thanks, Chair. I'd just like to acknowledge the passing of David Harris, a long-term resident of Martinborough and the South Wairarapa district. He passed last week after some illness. His funeral is going to be tomorrow. He grew up along with his family, rural Martinborough, on the Rough Hill Farm, which was up the Cape River Road, which is off the White Rock Road. There was a large family out there. It was so large that the education department sent a school teacher out to teach all the children in that family, and the school teacher lived in the house. He used, as a child, to get backwards and forwards to Martinborough. He and his brothers and sisters rode on horseback. He then, for a number of years, managed a neighbouring property out there, probably for 3 decades. And again, that property, they did all the mustering on horseback. Fijian scrub cutting gangs were employed to scrub cut out there. They used pack horses to get the supplies backwards and forwards. So that wasn't such, well, that was a few years ago. It wasn't in recent history. He was a skilled stockman. He was a skilled dog trialist. He was known all over the country for his skill in training working sheepdogs. He was sought after by a number of young shepherds, young farmers, to seek advice or impart his advice on how to train their sheepdogs. And while he has been I suppose, a stalwart of the rural community. He's also been involved in a number of organisations and groups within Martinborough. So I'd just like to pay a tribute to David's passing, and also to his surviving family, Carol, Roddy, and Gavin.
Well,
Thanks.
thank you very much. Thank you for that. So we'll move on now to public participation. We have one public participant this morning. So Daphne, please come and join us at the table. I did see Alice on the So thank you, Daphne. You have 5 minutes to speak this morning, including any question time. So when you get to 4 minutes, Amy will ring a bell. Oh, sorry, she'll raise her hand. And if that would be quite a good time if you think there's any questions. Otherwise, at 5 minutes, I'll let you know that you're yes. When you're ready.
Tēnā koutou, ngā mihi o te rā. I direct my comments to the councillors who participated in or sanctioned the extraordinary meeting of council on the 24th of April. After watching the meeting, I contacted each of you with my concerns and received one reply, which, however, rudely dismissed me out of hand. So in public and in front of the press, I'd like to hold a mirror up to that meeting and share my disgust at your behaviour. The sole agenda was to redistribute committees on which the mayor was our representative. Your perceived performance of a duly elected mayor was then severely criticised in public and in his absence. And the meeting redistributed his committee duties as if it was a lolly scramble. This is counter to your own code of conduct, numbers 1, 2, 7, 8, and 9 at least.
Sorry, I'm just going to interrupt
people fairly.
Daphne, can I just interrupt you there? I do need to point out that whilst you are welcome to your opinion and to have a public participation this morning, standing orders do say that the speaker is not able to criticise elected members and or staff. So whilst you're welcome to continue, I suggest you may need to change your tone.
I'm giving my observations.
Okay, but you currently are being incredibly critical, and that's not falling under our standing orders.
I'm sorry, I was taking a lead from the meeting on the 24th where you were all incredibly critical of someone who wasn't there. I'm critical of you to your faces. I think that's a lot more appropriate. However, this was counter to your own code of conduct, number 1, 2, 7, and 9 at least. Treat all people fairly. Treat all members with respect. Not bully or harass. Not bring local authority into disrepute. And not use your position to improperly advantage yourselves. So let me reiterate, disrespectful, harassing criticism in public, this behaviour by your own standards is not acceptable. Members sat around divvying up committees on where he couldn't be, divvying up committees, and on committees where he couldn't be removed by regulatory reasons, the chief executive volunteered to contact that committee and investigate what was necessary to remove him. Well, I, for one, thought maybe the name Mayoral Forum suggested that the mayor should be our representative. The mayor had been on 2 months unpaid and agreed leave. Earlier that week, the chief executive confirmed that he was due back on Thursday, the 25th. The meeting was held on Wednesday, the 24th, less than 24 hours before his return. And I've been told by a councillor that the meeting was held at the earliest available time after you had asked for a report to be prepared the previous week. The earliest time possible, the most rushed, urgent business to be conducted by council, it required an extraordinary meeting. No thought to allow due process or natural justice for the mayor to consider the committee structures, hear the issues, give his opinion or viewpoint. Isn't that bullying? Now, on to the other nasty details. It was admitted by the acting mayor and the CE that neither had.
I'm going to interrupt.
Yeah, can we just-
Put us down. We need to stop. I have already pointed out that criticism of elected members and staff is not permissible. You may continue, but you must change your language. You cannot.
How can I describe it without using a negative term, negative behaviour?
This is just one.
Very
You don't know any other way. It's just-
personal
Yeah.
attacks on our
I don't have to listen.
So,
and
Stephanie, if I have to
Oh,
stop you again, we will all
It
leave.
was admitted
Yeah.
by the acting mayor and the chief executive that neither had contacted the mayor about the meeting or raised concerns. It was admitted at the meeting No councillor felt any pang of conscience that maybe they should have waited less than a day for his return and talked it through. We elected you all knowing you all have faults, however, we expect some degree of common decency in your behaviour.
I'm going to stop.
This is personal attacks.
It's personal attacks.
Exactly, you know, we have noted your points, you sent us all emails, we noted your points. However, please note that what you are basing your opinions on, your emails and your presentation before us today is only a very small piece or a part of limited knowledge that you have
Exactly.
about this whole situation.
I'm just going to stop.
Can I just confirm that? What I am speaking about is that one meeting. I don't.
Sorry, Daphne.
Very derogatory.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm going to stop you there.
Let's finish. I'm
not interested in.
That's the end of your time.
I'm pretty sure that what you.
Yeah.
No, that's enough. That's enough.
Ready to stop. That is the end of your
So-
time.
That's enough.
Not allowed to criticise the behaviour of this council.
It's not a
You've
debate.
certainly done that.
It's-
Daphne, that's the end of your time. I'm sorry. That's where you stop. And this isn't a question and answer session. That's the end of your time.
I'm pretty sure that
No,
what
no,
is illegal or even contravenes any regulation. It's nasty, unethical and unnecessary.
Adjourn. Welcome back, everyone. Thank you. Any actions, please, from the public participation? No, thank you. Moving right along. Any extraordinary business?
Actually, I would like to address one thing with the comment about the email. I sent an email and I did not regard it as being dismissive of Daphne's email at all. I felt it was answered in full and properly, so I'd like to comment on that.
Thank you. Any extraordinary business, please? Martin.
Yes, I seek approval to give an oral mayoral report. And the reason I seek it under extraordinary business is that I did not receive an invitation to put in a written paper.
This is strategic working group, not council.
Not council.
So the all the papers would have potentially happened while you're away,
That's
but you haven't been excluded from that process.
there's usually a deadline on when members can put in reports.
May I just clarify, wouldn't a mayoral report be in the council meeting?
The council meeting.
This is the strategy.
Yes, that's, I believe anybody can,
So what you're wanting
What's that?
is members report.
yes.
So we would need a move. Yeah, so we've got anyone, so you're moving that request, Martin?
that.
And do we have a seconder for that, please? Sorry, no seconder, which means the request passes. We are now moving to consider the Strategy Working Committee meeting minutes from the 13th, 17th of April. Are there any corrections noted in those minutes, please?
Sorry, Madam Chair, minutes, we've got three lots of.
Yes, so the 3rd, the 10th and the 17th.
Okay. So obviously two of them relate to the Featherston Master Plan deliberation,
Correct.
and relates to working committee as such, yes.
No corrections, or we're also just having a week. So I have a mover to confirm that the minutes of the Strategy Working Committee meetings held on the 13th and 17th of April are a true and correct record.
I'm happy to.
Thank you, and a seconder. Thank you very much. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, please say no.
I'll abstain from the third because I wasn't there, but the other two approved.
I shall abstain from them all.
Thank you. Motion is carried. Are there any matters arising from the previous minutes, please? No, that takes us on to decision reports from the Chief Executive and staff, and we'll start with item B1, updated Three Waters Hospital delivery plan for the year ending 23-24. Got with us, Stefan. Stefan, would you like to join us at the table and walk us through the report, please?
Morning, Nakota. Morning, everyone. Cold morning. I'd like to take the paper as read. Obviously, we don't look favourably on overruns, and the original amount that was being asked for, and indeed the option that Wellington Water have asked us to approve is over $1 million. Now, we rejected that amount, and on Genesis instructions, we went back into the detail and interrogated the nature of the overruns and sought to reduce it as much as possible, which we believe we have done, and the option that we're putting to you today is half of that amount at roughly $500,000. There's two things going on here, and I do want to give you a kind of balanced view of it. On one hand, there's genuine reasons for the overrun. When we delayed money that was going to be spent on certain projects like Memorial Park, we did allow Wellington Water to move money into other activities. So they did the design work on the Featherston mains project, which was 180,000. So money was moved from one area to another while we stalled on a certain project. There are some cost pressures there, which we recognise, and in today's environment, that is an inevitable part of doing business. And so there are genuine reasons why we're coming and asking for that amount of money, and they're outlined in the paper. And I think that's, to be expected. On the other side of things, to be completely transparent with you, There is an issue with overruns in the Wellington water system. I think we all know that. It's something that happens regularly and is happening across all of the owner councils. And we're doing our best to address that. We're very actively involved in addressing that. But it's really, it's difficult because you have to do that as a collective group in order to have any impact on the system. So all of the owner councils are involved in conversations that sometimes led by CE, sometimes led by mayor, on the statement of intent on improved metrics, you know, better governance and monitoring of cost control and the performance of the organisation overall. And the message is really clear from us, as it is from all the owner councils, that, you know, we want to see improvements. We know there are reasons why, genuine reasons why you will overrun on budget sometimes, and there's some tolerances around that. But we do believe that there's a pattern here, which we're working with our other councils to address. Now, what's in front of you today, I know it isn't palatable. It's, you know, we never like to see approvals for additional funding like this. But I want you to know that we have done everything we can to control it, to get it down to as low a level as we can and still be able to do the things we need to be doing. And we will continue to work with Wellington Water to mitigate the chance of this happening.
Thank you, Stefan, and thank you for that sort of balanced approach you're taking. Can I start this next part off with two questions? One, I was surprised to see in the paper talk of the Donald Street Rising Main coming in over budget, particularly when we had talked about that project coming in on time and under budget. So that was quite a surprise. So if you could talk to that, that would be great. And secondly, I see that recommendation number 3 is to note that Wellington Water have committed to improve their processes in terms of capital delivery within budget. But given that this isn't the first time we've discussed this type of issue, I wonder if that recommendation needs tightening up a little bit to put a bit more a little bit more what's the word I'm looking for, rigor into that recommendation. It's all well and good to sort of note it, but I'd like there to be some
Thank you, Chair. Yeah. Look, I've seen in front of this table and said that the Donald Street Pump Station and Rising Main project was done on time and on budget, and proudly said that too. And so I'm a little bit irritated myself to now have to say that's not quite the case. But I'm willing to offer. I'm happy to offer an explanation of that. First of all, you know, it is an overrun, so there's no getting away from that. But what happened was there were some unbudgeted items that arose at the back end of the project. Those were items that weren't originally scoped. They were things like an additional crash barrier, additional local water main replacement extension for the washdown, safety grill for operators, some venting work and what have you. So there was several items that came in late and they weren't scoped. They were at a cost of $350,000. And that was the extent of the overrun. Of course, that's $350,000 is to be understood next to the total cost of the project, which was 2.9 million. So while that is undesirable, that offers a little bit more information about how the overruns occurred. And I would also say that it doesn't really it doesn't change the fact that there was an overrun. But I would also say that we did achieve the repairs to the rising main within the original budget that was scoped for the pump station. So we were able to get a very high critical asset, a VHCA asset in place within the scope of the original budget, which makes the 350,000 taste a little bit sweeter, or maybe not, you might think. But that's the.
Just have that clarification.
Yes, but that's how the overruns occurred. We've gone back to Wellington Water and as part of that overall conversation that we're having with them about cost control, said that we really can't have this happen, especially when publicly we have said that a project is coming on budget on time, and then we have to turn around and change our minds in public, and that makes us all look a little bit silly. So we have underlined that with Wellington Water. The second question, I don't disagree with you, Chair, that might need tightening up, but I think that's probably a conversation for the table.
Perfect, thank you. So councillor Olds and then.
I just want to drill down on the scoping, the additional cost overrun of 350K. Surely some of the items that you mentioned would have been part of that contract and not scoped. You say that they weren't scoped at the time. Is there a reason for that, Stefan? Did you drill down on that a little bit with Wellington Water to find out why that wasn't included in their original scoping exercise?
No, I haven't, but I could do.
I do note that Stefan is here and he doesn't have a Wellington Water representative.
Adam's behind.
We can either bring Adam to the table and seek an explanation from him on that detail, or I can come back to you.
I'd try to like for you to come back to us on that if you wouldn't mind. Yeah, I understand. You can understand my question, can't you? Is
Yes.
the fact that it should have been included in the original scoping.
Yes.
Yeah, councillor Macaulay and then.
Well, that was exactly my question too. Yes, I mean, so that was Wellington Water was responsible for the scoping.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, so, okay, that would. Thank you.
Councillor Bosley.
Seems that Wellington Water are always coming back asking for more money. For Tuesday.
Yeah, right.
And I'm not sure if they've ever delivered a project yet on time or either on budget or under budget. Is there any way, going back to what Chair about more rigorous testing on this, that we can get these things peer reviewed? I mean, not scoping a safety barrier and a drain seems pretty basic to me. To have missed something like that as an example.
Up until now, we have been having this conversation with Wellington Water about cost control and about financial performance through, as I said, through improving the letter of intent, statements of expectation, working through committee, working through governance with the CE and the Mayor. Other councils have, as you'll be aware, other councils have sought independent scrutiny of Wellington Water. Most prominently, Wellington City Council has had an independent review, which made a certain amount of claims about, what the organisation was doing well and not well. We also have that option. That kind of independent review, that comes at a cost, and of course it's always open for debate as well once it's publicly done. So yes, it is available as an option for you.
There's a cost that comes with it.
Cost and time.
I thought it cost me more than 350,000.
It seems to me that Wellington Water seems to think there's a river of cash that runs through
And-
whatever.
Totally.
So we could just get more, we'll just ask for more money, especially as we into the.
I, from a Wellington Water perspective, I think it's really important to put it in context with the advice that we've given all throughout the year. At the beginning of the year, we signalled that fundamentally the funding, the assets are failing at a faster rate than you're renewing them, and therefore, and also that a lot of you accepted some risk at the beginning of the budgeting process. We foreshadowed that reactive renewals would exceed, and we provide that information on a dashboard, and we provide monthly updates to your staff. And halfway through the year, we provided all the information as an update to the council. So I totally understand the frustration of overruns, but I probably wouldn't agree with any narrative that says we don't keep you informed.
I think there's perhaps a slightly different conversation that's happening here between being informed and questioning how we prevent this situation reoccurring going forward.
Probably the thing with the reactive renewals is one of our concerns of why we recommended the other option would be that there will be more renewals required before the end of the financial year. And at the moment, they're not budgeted for.
No, but I think the particular conversation around Donald Street wasn't reactive maintenance as far as.
Oh, no, sorry, I'm not disagreeing with Donald Street.
Thank you. Councillor Gray.
I kind of just wanted to take the conversation on a slightly different tangent, if that's okay. And I think probably just more to echo what Charles is saying here. Wellington Water's never made a secret of how much money is needed to bring all of our businesses up to a certain level. And we as a council haven't, we've had to balance that financial cost with the impact on ratepayers, and it's a thing that we have to go through a lot. But conversations about costs or cost overrun aside, I guess what I kind of wanted to flag is that the work that we have done by Wellington Water, the engineering and the scoping of projects and how it is all put in play, is of really quite exceptional quality as far as I understand. So the projects that are being done to a very high level. So I think when we have conversations around the budgets or overruns, I think we need to keep in mind that this is a massive body of work that needs to be done. And whilst it's important to be prudent around the funding, I feel very comfortable that we are installing assets for the community at very high quality.
Thank you. Councillor Martinez.
I agree with a lot of what you said, Councillor Gray. However, I think it does come back to the fact that this was actually something that we put out through our annual plan. It was one of the consultation pieces that we actually put through last year. We didn't go for the lowest amount either, so because we heard back from our public that they wanted a higher, a higher amount for safety purposes. So understanding that we're not talking about we only gave you the bare bones to run on for Wellington Water. We actually gave a fair, significant amount to them to ensure that this work was done. So that's what my concern is, to have something that's $350,000 more come through now for the Donald Street, and then needing further funding. Again, I have real concerns. One, and probably the main one, is that this tends to happen right before we're due to go to the next annual plan. So and so this is the third time that we've had a funding request come from Wellington Water right before the annual plan, and it always seems to me that there's got to be some kind of way that this is built into their following, rather than trying to take it and find something that our ratepayers just don't have.
So we find ourselves in a position where we have three recommendations. Yep, I'll come to you in just a second. The second being this request for 530,000 of increased funding. So whilst Donald Street is an aspect of the entire conversation, we do need to be considering where we're heading with that decision. So I'll go to you, Councillor Plummer.
Thank you. Just got a couple of points I'd like to say. Look, I understand your frustration, I really do. but it's not surprising because it is coming to the end of the financial year and this is when all this comes through. So whilst frustrating, probably understandable from an accounting perspective. That's poor Charles there trying to balance his budget for the year. But I'm conscious, and I want to bring it back to the paper. And Stefan, what I'm listening to you about is the difference between option, and I'm assuming we're going to go option 2 or option 3, and generally we go with what the recommended level is. I'm really interested to see why are we not looking at option 3, and what I'm hearing from you is perhaps that's because of the overrun, as opposed to that's what we prudently should be doing. I look at the actual cost of 0.16% of a rates rise, 0.1%. You know, that's oh God, on a rates rise, what's 1% is 250,000. So what's 0.1% is $25,000 if my maths is right. We're talking the difference between $25,000 and $50,000.
Yes.
That's the difference here. And I think we're arguing about something that really is almost like a decimal point movement in our overall finances of millions. And so, you know, and it comes as no surprise, and I've said this time and time again, that there is never any cheaper time to do it than now. And when I look at the difference between a 0.16% or a 0.32, in terms of actual dollar amounts, we are talking such a little amount. And I know all the little amounts add up, but the benefit that we get for our aging infrastructure, and we hear every single time that our infrastructure is falling apart faster and faster and faster. And that's not going to slow down, is it, Charles? It's just going to get worse, isn't it? Thank you. So, you know, there is no cheaper time than to do it today, because yesterday was cheaper, but tomorrow's going to be more expensive. We are also looking at all the other costs that are going on around us with, you know, we haven't finished the insurance premiums that are going to go up every year. We are in this really difficult financial position at the moment, but it's not going to get easier next year. It's going to be worse, and we'll have the same conversation next year. And that's the problem. And I think it would, whilst I understand your comments about the overruns and so on, and we all have those issues, and Charles, you know, you hear it on from us all the time. The prudent thing is to try and do as much as we possibly can now, because tomorrow is more expensive. So my issue would be going option 3.
Councillor Elam's in there.
Thanks, Chair. Reading through both the staff report, yours and Robin's report, Stefan, and also the Wellington Water report, I was sort of going and thinking back to the time that I have been on community board and now on council. And in 2021 and 2022, there were headlines in the paper about such as council doesn't hold back on Wellington Water criticism and water budget blowout. And here we are again. I mean, after today's discussion, I don't want to see those headlines. What I want to see is a headline, something about, you know, that this council has had a robust debate and looking at improving our water infrastructure across the district, as we all know it needs to occur, but also that you know, we're discussing with Wellington Water about how to you know, control those budget blowouts, spends. Alistair, I take your point about the option 3, which is the 1.1 mil increase. Page 26 of the staff report says that that 1.1 increase would be 0.3 of a percent, sorry, 0.30 of a percent or 0.3 of a percent impact on next year's total rates requirement. Yeah, we all said, you know, and Charles, I agree, you know, you are sharing the information with us. We're getting the information on project dashboards. I've reviewed it last month when I was doing my portfolio lead report, and I've raised some points in my portfolio lead report about some of the water services and that, and which we'll hear about a bit later. We do need to continue the work on our water infrastructure, but yeah, I'm just at of cost overruns, like Stefan has said. So I'm wondering is, while there is a recommendation 3 in the report as it is, I'm wondering if, you know, are we able to set timelines or timeframes and deadlines so that as governance, we have visibility over what measures Wellington Water is putting in place to improve their processes around the budgeting of CapEx and OpEx. I know that Stefan has said that Robin is working closely with Wellington Water to try and other councils are working closely with Wellington Water to try and get improved processes and visibility over this. But can we actually put some timeframes and deadlines in so that we're not having this conversation next year, the year after, or the year after, so that, you know, before it comes to this table, you know, at this time of year, we are actually, you know, have greater visibility.
Thank you. I think that makes it.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So the figure that Wellington Water approached council with initially was 1.01 million. And the details of that 1.01 million are on page 30. And the request, as I understand it, is that they needed the 1.01 million to complete the capital program. But if I've understood Stefan correctly, in actual fact, they have already, for example, spent the extra 0.38 million on the Donald Street riser here. So that's just been confirmed. So I think what we would also be interested in, and certainly I commend officers for cutting it back to 0.353 million, but can we be sure that in actual fact, all of the items on page 30 haven't actually already been commenced, underway? Are we in the position where actually we do have to pay it whether we want it or not?
Nodding, yes.
He's done. Or
Chair, so there's been a few things raised, and I'd just like to circle back to them. So the first thing is that yes, the overspend, the numbers that we're talking about are a combination of things. They contain overrun money, which is predominantly on Donald Street, and that has already been paid. So that's you know, necessary costs, you might say. The balance of it, though, the way that we have mainly reduced the 1.01 down to 0.5 is the removal of the reactive renewals budget for the program. So, you know, what we've done is we've recommended option 2, which has no increased budget for reactive renewals, whereas option 3 has increased general funds for reactive renewals. Now, that's the main way that we've sharpened the pencil on this. Now, of course, so that reflects the conversation at the table about there's 2 different things going on here. One is cost control. One is just the nature of the network and how it keeps blowing up and costing us money. If you choose option 2, that's fine, that's 0.5. But then, of course, channeling Charles here, that carries risk for us all in that you can't control reactive renewals. And if reactive renewals happen, as they inevitably do, then we will encounter unbudgeted expense anyway above the figure. And that's what Councillor Plummer is really talking about. Why wait for that to happen at a higher expense? Do it now, if I'm understanding his comments correctly. Then the last thing was you would like us to come back with Wellington Water and have a separate report and conversation on what's being done to improve forecasting accuracy and communication and procurement and cost control. And I don't think Charles will object to that at all. I think that's a very healthy conversation to have, and I would be able to do that.
Well, one last comment, and then we'll go to move these.
Yeah, no, thanks, Stefan, and a report on how we're going to manage going forward our funding. The problem I have to say, is that we've had these conversations before, and not just this triennium, but the previous one as well, where we've had cost overruns, we've had scrutiny of the way that we do business with Wellington Water effectively, you know. So this is just another report to come to us effectively. So it's got to have some real substance attached to it, because quite frankly, we seem to be just doing this year in and year out with overruns, et cetera. So can you assure us, for instance, that the paper you produced to us will have some really meaningful impact on the way that we do business with Wellington Water?
Do my best, councillor.
Could I
Sorry, we'll just go one last comment from the councillor Woodcock, and then we are going to look to vote on these recommendations, please. Councillor Woodcock.
Chair, thanks Stefan for fronting up. That'll be easy. What concerns me a little bit too, we get this now, so we've had, in the last financial year, we got slapped with a big overrun on the OPEX side of it, which we found out that previous councils have been signing off, no questions asked. Are we going to end up with a big OPEX overrun at the end of the year as well? We don't know about?
OPEX is, gosh, I'd have to come back to you on where OPEX is tracking for the year. Councillor, sorry, I can't answer that straight away.
Yeah, it also says in there, I can't find it on my bloody computer. Practice ad, so when I was starting my notes, overspend, says here, Gradium Bore bulk, the bulk of that has not been spent, but it didn't actually have a figure that I could find. But what's the figure that's left? What's been spent so far?
Thank you, councillor. So I'm getting whispers in my ear from my Wellington Water colleagues that OPEX is landing about on budget. So that's a reassurance we can provide you. Seeing Charles nodding as well, which makes me feel a bit better. And the detail under the individual line item that you've asked for, I'll have to come back to you. Sorry.
And it does concern me in number 2, paragraph 2, I think it was. It says here, there have also been decisions on process and controls made by Wellington Water that have contributed to a forecast that exceeds the approved funds available. So why are they making decisions without informing council that are bringing these into the budget?
Yeah, so that is probably something that we should talk about at a separate time in detail, because it is complicated. We do give Wellington Water by we, I mean all council owners, give Wellington Water the ability to manage budgets on a program basis. So they will and have to move money around the budget and they'll do that sometimes with approval if it's a very large item, sometimes they won't. And there's reasons for that, and there's impacts or implications of that. And I would like to run through that with you in a detailed way rather than superficially dealing with it now, if that meets your needs.
Sorry, yeah. Right, so with that in mind, I think we'll look to move and vote on recommendations 1 and 2 together, and then just look at any amendments that may or may not need to be made to recommendations 3. So in the first instance, do I have a mover to receive the updated Three Waters Capital Delivery Plan and agree to increase the financial year 2023-24 capital investment budget to match the forecast, and option 2, which is an increase of 0.53 million, bringing the total forecast expenditure for the financial year 2023-24 4.69 million, excluding the actual forecast spend of 0.29 million against the Greytown Water Treatment Plant Upgrade Project. Do I have a mover for that, for those?
I'll move to receive the report.
Okay.
I'll second receive it.
Okay.
We might do them separately. Apologies, Chair.
No, that's fine. Optimistic as always. All those in favour of receiving the report, please say aye. All those against? That motion is carried. Right, which moves us to recommendation number 2. Given do I have a mover on this one? Thank you.
And I'll second that.
And you'll second it. Thank you. So all those in favour, please say aye.
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 All those against, please say no.
No.
So can we just do hands? So all those in favour, please put your hand up.
that.
And so all those against, please raise your hands.
Hmm.
The motion fails.
Can I propose a new motion then?
You may.
To propose that we accept option 3.
I'll second that.
Second, so
So option 3 being, can you just,
the 1.1.
1.01 million, yeah.
So just 3% on next year's rates.
And it's going on to next year's rate, so it's not actually coming through now.
So this will change a little bit in terms of our consultation with our,
Just bearing in mind that we haven't consulted on that.
Yeah.
You don't need to consult on that because it's not significant.
Okay.
It will just be part of the deliberations catch-up that we do, I think. So,
Okay, so we've got a new recommendation, that being to accept Wellington Water's recommendation of the $1.1 million increase in spend. All those in favour, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye. That's everyone.
Yeah, and then all those against, please raise your hand. Woodcock. Maynard. And sorry, and again.
No.
Motion is carried. Sorry, we just needed to make sure we have our numbers right. So that is the 1.1 million is carried. Recommendation number 3, note that Wellington Water have committed to improve their processes to better deliver the capital program within council approved budget. Do I have a mover for this one, please? Ray and a seconder, councillor Plimmer.
Can we? Oh, so it's noted?
it's only a note, isn't it?
It's only a note.
Currently, it's only a note. I suggested at the beginning of this debate that we needed to strengthen that, but it's entirely up to the table.
I would agree with strengthening that, and I'd like to add something with regards to timeframes and deadlines, so that we have visibility over the measures that Wellington Water are putting into place to improve those processes.
Sorry, just to confirm, we've currently got a mover and a seconder for it as it stands. So at this point, we can only amend if it's not passed. So given that we've got a mover and a seconder, we'll put it to the vote. So all those in favour of noting that Wellington Water have committed to improve their processes, say aye. All those, sorry, we haven't called the and all those against, please say aye.
Aye.
And raise your hand.
Need a counter today.
Yeah.
council is what we need.
For old Wellington Water.
Okay, so
Yes, others.
so that falls. And at this point, we can offer, so. Yes, oh, sorry, did you vote either way for that?
No, I abstain.
You abstained from that one. Okay, thank you. Councillor Elams, did you want to offer an amendment?
Yes, I would. I would like council to work, staff to work with Wellington Water to come back and provide with us some timeframes, deadlines, so that governance have visibility over the measures that Wellington Water are putting in place to improve their processes around the budgeting of CapEx and OpEx programs.
Yeah, so how about we go with note that Wellington Water have committed to improve their processes to to better deliver the capital program within council approved budget. And they or staff will report back
We could,
on those measures in a certain time frame.
we could say, Chair, and by the end of June, a report to be prepared and tabled that outlines how we will reset expectations and ensure Wellington Water's internal processes support forecasting accuracy and budget control.
Perfect, thank you.
Just be mindful with saying the end of June
Yeah.
to where the committees fall,
Yeah.
because we won't have a committee in that space, so.
Right. If we say by the end of July, that will give us enough room to meet the necessary meeting date. It might not be, it might be earlier than the end of July, but that gives us the window that we need.
Are we able to tighten that a little bit, wording that Stefan's provided? I believe that we still need to actually know timeframes, you know, and have.
We're just trying to work when the next meeting is.
It is the 31st of July.
So it's the next strategy working committee.
I think is.
That's the 5th of June.
It's the
And
5th of
5th
June.
of June, but we won't do it by the 5th of June.
No.
So when's after that? It could be 31 July. I thought.
Yes, because you're council.
In between because
Yeah,
of,
so
yeah.
31
July
July.
works.
July.
Thank
So
you.
you have to be,
Chair, can we just change the word note to request?
Or recommend.
Wellington Water commit. Rather than note that Wellington Water, so request that Wellington Water commit. Obviously the following.
so the recommendation is request that Wellington Water commit to improve their processes to better deliver the capital program within council approved budget. And by the end of July, a report to be prepared and tabled that outlines how we will reset expectations and ensure the Wellington Water internal processes for forecasting.
Support forecasting accuracy and budget control.
Do I have a mover for that one? Councillor Elam.
Happy to see.
Can I just, before I commit to that, can I just check with Wellington Water that I'm committing to something that's actually doable? Charles, can we put something together, including your internal examination of what's going on by the 31st of July?
Yeah, we can. I think that the what we can do is bundle up everything, because there is a number of activities from the SOI and the performance framework that the Water Committee is introducing and wanting to do. So we need to just make sure we don't get the council's expectations ahead of their Water Committee, where you have a representative.
Giving the whole picture.
But we can certainly give visibility and to give assurance of the activities which are underway.
Okay,
We can
I'm
do-
sorry to interrupt.
Right, so we have
Charles, next Stefan.
a seconder and a move. So it's Councillor Elam and Councillor Bosley. All those in favour of the amended recommendation 3, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
All those against, please say no. The motion is carried. Wonderful. So, councillor Elams, the vote for the increase of 1.1 million, we were.
Calls for.
Thank you. Good. Right, so moving right along, item B2, Community Wellbeing Fund Amendment. Janice, would you like to take us through the report?
Through the chair, I will take the report as read. The reason for bringing this to the table is, as you know, we are required to work on the Local Waters Done Well agenda and prepare a water plan by the end of June 2025. We have had contact from the DIA asking around commitments against both the transition funding that council received under the previous model, as well as commitments against the Better Off funding that we have been allocated. At this point, we have appointed a funding advisor. The first committee meeting for that fund is this week, but we haven't yet committed anything from that fund. The government has equally clearly stated there will be no additional government funding to support any work required to give life to that water plan from June 2025. So what I'm recommending here is a prudent shift of unallocated funds to make sure that we can carry out the work that's needed to prepare that water plan and do whatever we need to do to create the entity, whatever that looks like, without further burdening the ratepayer in terms of rate increases, because these would be operational in nature. So I'm suggesting that we do both. We still retain funds for the Community Wellbeing Fund, but that we earmark a good chunk of that money towards the Local Waters Done Well and water initiatives that we know we're going to have to carry out in the next 18 months.
Very sensible.
Can I just ask Janice, there was quite a substantial number, and off the top of my head, I want to say it was about 200,000 of associated costs to run the fund.
Mhm.
Will they reduce with the reduced fund, or they remain the same, and therefore the allocatable amount is actually significantly less than 500?
No, when we talked to you, if you recall, around creating the committee, we committed to not spending $200,000 of administration. So the only cost that we see that would be there would be the funding advisor role. And obviously that will work with committee and the community groups around the Wellbeing Fund.
Perfect. Great. Any other questions for Janice? Thank you, Councillor.
Thanks, Chair. So Janice, you're saying that if 800K is taken out of the Community Wellbeing Fund to the work, develop that water services plan, 800K isn't just going to be used on the water services, it is also going to be used on water infrastructure?
It can be.
Can be.
The direction from government is if you haven't got commitments against that fund, to consider how you can use it in the water space over the next 12 to 18 months.
Brilliant.
And I think
We've certainly heard from
Brilliant.
Charles there about our renewals, and I've made comments in a report to be discussed later about our renewals, that I think we are behind on pipe renewals. So I'm certainly keen to ensure that we're not just going to be spending 800K on developing our water services.
I think the position we're in is the government have made it incredibly clear they won't be funding these next steps of the setup, and therefore we find ourselves in a position of needing to fund that work as yet an undefined amount. But the alternative to unfortunately siphoning some of the wellbeing fund into this would be that we need to then rate for that money. So we need to pay for this work, and regardless.
And through the chair, as you mentioned, it's undefined at the moment because it's not clear whether we are region, whether we are Wairarapa, whether how that model's going to plan out, and what structure needs to be created to operate. And that's what the funds would go to primarily, is that structure,
Okay.
our contribution towards that structure.
Yeah, that's great.
So I'm speaking to the report as a whole, but my comments are particularly directed around the 500,000 versus the 800,000. And I think a little bit of the problem with the 800,000 is that actually we don't have enough details to know whether that's likely to be sufficient, more than sufficient, or whatever. And my reading of what DIA have sent is actually that it's rather vague, really. However, the one thing that is absolutely certain is that irrespective of the level of costs that we end up being required to meet, they are not going to come to our assistance. And I think if I think back to when the Better Off funding first started, to me, the world has changed so much that actually I think we would be much better to put all of the 1.3 million to a combination initially of whatever the organisational and changes that we've referred to, Janice referred to, via RAP or regional, whatever, and that anything that's left over, and we know from the previous discussion that there will be costs on water infrastructure for years to come, and frankly, I think it would be ring-fenced too.
Thank you, councillor Gray.
You're saying that the 500 is.
So we've discussed at length around this table the allocation of these funds, and we were in a position last year where I think we were pretty fairly divided across the council as to what we do with this. Whether we keep the money in the wellbeing fund or whether we use some of the money to pay for desludging. And we ended up having to compromise on that half of the money went to that and the other half was to stay in this fund. Part of the rationale for keeping it in that fund was that not everybody in the district uses our water services, but everybody in the district could benefit from this fund if it was allocated properly. So I do understand the fact that things have changed a lot since then, and we're now, you know, through the machinations of the central government, now in a position of having to fund projects that we wouldn't have. But I would again speak quite strongly against carving out a chunk of money that can then just disappear off into water stuff. I think the report makes it really clear that that 800 should be spent in transitioning to a new water model. If that full 800 doesn't get used there, I'd like to see a mechanism whereby it can come back to the community fund and not be spent on water assets. I know we have a lot that we need to cover, but that's not what this fund was for. And I know that there's a lot of organisations and groups in our community that could do so much with this money and to make a really big difference for a lot of people out there. Yeah, I think it would be a shame to lose us totally.
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca. I totally agree with you. And Martin, the world has turned since last year a little bit, and the government has obviously said do something, but again, we're not going to fund you. So I have no problems with some of that money funding the transition to whatever the organisation is. I was a little bit concerned, Janice, when you said, oh, it can be used on water as well. That's where, for me, we've had that debate. The line had to stop at funding the new organisation and that, but the water. Otherwise, to me, it just seems that the whole fund might as well just go to the people who are connected and bugger the rest of the district. Yeah. That's not what the fund was for. And there's a lot, as we saw with the Hinakura Road, a little bit of money in the rural environment goes a hell of a long way for upgrading the facilities that they have there for resilience. And if you tell me you put $500,000 into our rural communities, that's halls upgraded, that's internet for their access, that's resilience creating. If we don't have that fund, we don't have that ability to support a third of our district.
Bearing in mind that the fund isn't just for rural.
No, but it's
what you're saying.
But it was $1.8 million was for the whole district. Now we're down to $500,000 for the whole district. Well, we all know that around this table, the people who are going to come up with the ideas it's going to go into the town as well. So, like you said, no problems with the situation has changed. We have to fund the new entity. I don't have a problem with that. But like you, Rebecca, I want the rest of it ring-fenced for the community, because there are community groups out there that can use this money to a huge effect. And it won't just go in 1 year. It will make transformational changes for some of these communities for a long, long time. And that's where we should be doing it.
Thank you very much. Councillor Old.
Yeah, so mine will be very brief. My position remains the same. I've always supported that funding, that money, that allocation of that better off funding going back into our waters, where it really will assist our community in terms of deliverables and also impact on as well. However, I think what the paper that's presented to us today meets us halfway. It shares a little bit more, and I'm really comfortable endorsing what Janice has presented to us today. So
Thank you very much, councillor Woodcock, and then we'll go to the vote.
Yeah, I understand too that things have changed, the government changing everything else, but what concerns me, we were already through $500,000 of this money at the waters with the desludging and that. Now we want to throw 800,000. I would rather see it the other way around and 500,000 go to the waters and 800,000 stay for the rest of the community.
I hear you. I just wonder if given that this isn't, in the first instance, isn't for water infrastructure work, it is for this formation and the unknown nature of it. What position do we put ourselves in if we lessen the fund, Janice?
As a chair, there is a risk that the setup costs for whatever entity we land in would be more than that. I acknowledge the statement made earlier that that's been made that if we get to a point where the 800,000 isn't required for the water transition, that fund reverts back to the wellbeing fund is probably a balance between the two.
I look at it the other way, that if there's $800,000 here, people will spend 800,000. If they only have $500,000, they might actually scrimp back on things and look a bit more carefully at budgets, etc. when they're doing this. The fact that they could always come back and ask for a little bit more if we really have to.
I think
I'm not.
through the chair, it's a difficult decision to make, given the lack of information we've got about where we're going at this point. We're in very early discussions as a whole region. We're in very early discussions as a Wairarapa region. We haven't got a line of sight yet about what that looks like. My preference is what's in the report. I wouldn't like to see council being hamstrung in that decision space because the funding wasn't available to allow us to engage properly in the way we need to. But there's so many unknowns coming in the next 3 to 5, 6 months. I wouldn't be comfortable in this chair with that switch, but it's your decision.
Sorry, councillor Macaulay.
Yes, I think it's a very, very difficult decision and I see your points of view, but I do think the position our chief executive has put forward is the right balance. Because we've got to do this work. We don't want there be too much impact on the ratepayers either. We can't forget that we've got this very serious issue with the rates much higher than a lot of people can cope with. So I actually think that the chief executive has put a very balanced view forward in what's a very almost no-win situation really, but I think this is the best solution.
Thank you. We'll attempt to put these in one block. We've got 5 recommendations. So recommendation 1, to receive the report. Recommendation 2, approve the ring fencing of 500,000 of the bit of funding to the Community Wellbeing Fund to enable community-led projects across to be considered and approved if appropriate. Recommendation 3, acknowledge that the remaining funds of around 800,000 will be held to fund the potential costs arising from the development of the Water Services Plan and transition to local waters done well. 4, delegate approval to the chief executive to approve the allocation of the funding to ensure that council's legal objectives under the local waters done well are met, including the consideration of a Wairarapa water solution. And 5, request that the chief executive report back to the committee on the use of the funds in due course. Do I have a mover? Councillor Old, thank you. Councillor Maynard as seconder. All those in favour, please say aye and leave your hands up. Got 1, 2, 3. Oh. Councillor Maynard, 4. All those against? 1, 2. 6. Fails. Right. Start at the beginning. Gavin.
I just, I think from what I've heard from a number of people, the issue, perhaps Janice, was that the statement that the money could be used on operational capital. To me, that's perhaps the stumbling block if I'm reading everybody around the table who made that. Maybe if we just add in another sub paragraph to this, and I could probably see myself supporting it, saying
no money none of that $800,000 can be used on general water. It can only be used for setting up the entity.
Through the chair, that's exactly what the recommendation says. You read the recommendation.
No, but you made it.
The DIA
you made
have
a comment.
indicated that we could use it for water related services.
What
My recommendation doesn't say
Yeah,
that.
so recommendation is,
Put in there that you cannot use it for that. So
Well, you probably,
I know the pressure comes around, it's fine, and so I'd rather just,
and that unused.
any unused money must come back to the fund, and that then circles it around and then I can certainly.
okay, so, sorry, just bear with me. So recommendation number 3 would be acknowledge that the remaining funds of circa 800,000 will be held to fund the potential costs arising from the development of the water services plan and transition to local waters done well solution only. And any unspent funds will be returned to the community wellbeing fund.
Yes.
Now it says it.
Thank you. With that, I'll propose A to E.
So is that an additional recommendation, is it?
No, so it just,
So it's
it's-
so where are you adding?
Shouldn't see.
yeah, so number 3 becomes acknowledge the remaining funds of circa 800,000 will be held to fund the potential costs arising from the development of the water services plan and transition to a local waters done well solution only, and any unspent funds will be returned to the community wellbeing fund.
With that, I'm happy to propose
Moving 1 to 5 again.
all the rest of that.
Yeah.
So councillor
Oh,
Clement is,
Rebecca's got that.
I will second that.
okay, so mover, seconder, head of the game. All those in favour of recommendations 1 to 5, including our amendment, please say aye.
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 All those against?
No.
Thank you. Yeah. That takes us to,
Is that carried?
it was carried, and I do acknowledge that it is a difficult decision to make. And I think it was councillor Macaulay that said it was a no-win situation, and I do agree, it's difficult either way. Moving along to item B3, the Wairarapa Class 4 Gambling and TAB Venues Policy Report. So would you like to join us and take us through the report?
Okay.
Sure.
So today we are here to have the Wairarapa Class 4 Gaming and TAB Venues Policy. We are asking for an adoption of this policy. The policy has gone through hearings and deliberations with the Wairarapa Policy Working Group, and the details of that are in the report. There are a couple of changes just to note. They both relate to 6.1 venue relocation. So during these hearings and deliberations, it was raised to include the word permanent in clause 6.1. To permanent re-establishment in a new site in the Masterton district under any circumstance. Masterton District Council are also looking at this policy today, and it has been brought to my attention that they would like us to look at an additional recommendation as well, which is to adopt the Wairarapa Class 4 Gaming and standalone TAB venue policy to include any amendments Masterton District Council resolved to include in clause 6.1. as of their meeting today. So I just wanted to raise that all with you. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
So just bearing in mind that it is a combined Wairarapa bylaw with a sort of extra clause that pertains specifically to Masterton, with how the Wairarapa Policy Working Group, which Boz and I both have worked through that and come to you today. Where did we start? How did your hand go?
And Nikki, just with regards to that, I know that there was quite a strong voice within this table the last time that it came, where we had concerns about people from one district being able to move to another district, such as the South Wairarapa district, and set up here. Has that been changed?
So no, that has not been changed. There was some pretty good discussion that happened in the deliberations in regards to that. And I think there was some pretty robust discussion around alignment. And as a general rule, for the combined policy, alignment is the preferred option. However, because it wasn't consulted on and we felt that it wasn't part of the consultation process, it was noted to be considered for the next review.
And when's the next review, Joe?
I thought we, as a council, completely said we don't
We
want
don't want,
relocation.
yeah. Like we actually, like the South Wairarapa District Council.
It wasn't a discussion point, it was
It was
nothing
no.
can move from one district to this.
To this district,
And then
yeah, have set up a gambling.
Yeah, so the last time we sat still and had that discussion, absolutely, we were looking to adopt a consultation document, which happened. The consultation document didn't include a change to that clause because we adopted it without it, noting that we would discuss it in the deliberations hearing with the Wairarapa Policy Working Group. That discussion did take place in the deliberations, and it was decided that it would be noted and that we would review it at the next.
Can I just clarify then?
That's not what this council asked for.
No, we said, and we were advised that it didn't matter if it didn't go out in consultation. So, because otherwise we would have said, this is what has to go in before we'll even consider
I
it.
think the viewpoint of the working group was that the bylaw still provides a number of protections from that happening anyway, because there are still a number of protections around where gambling facilities can be and how many and what's communities, etc.
It was the Factor restaurant that actually has it already in there, or someone, you know, like that could just come and set up in Greytown or, you know, in Featherston, in a vulnerable part of our areas and or Martinbury, you know, and be able to have these gaming because that clause wasn't in there. And we said quite firmly, I believe, around the table that we didn't agree with that and we wanted that to not be in there. And like, I didn't think that suddenly it won because that was when the consultation document came to the table. So to hear that we missed an opportunity to have it in the consultation document, and now it's not going to be it'll be noted for the next round.
It was definitely raised and discussed during the deliberation. So it was a topic that was brought to the Wairarapa Policy Working Group that was discussed. One of the discussion points from that policy working group was that the policy itself is actually doing its job currently. Like there is.
Sorry, can we just let?
Yeah, I just want to clarify this. So this council said no, and you took it back as a discussion topic. It wasn't a discussion topic. It was very much a no. We do not want this in this policy. And then to have our view then discussed as a moderated is not how democracy works. I thought, you know, as a council, we are entitled to say, we don't want this in our district for the benefit of our community. And now you're telling us that.
But I think that takes us back to the point where the bylaw in of itself primarily protects our communities from what you're concerned about.
But the view of this table was that it didn't.
we discussed it and we decided it didn't give enough safeguards.
Yeah, it wasn't strong.
Yeah, so during that meeting, the consultation document was adopted by this council. It then went out for consultation. On the consultation document, which you saw and adopted, there was a discussion at that meeting that it would be raised in the deliberations, which it was done by the Wairarapa Policy Working Group. And the Wairarapa Policy Working Group looked to make sure that it was going to be included in the next review, which would be, I believe, in 3 weeks.
So then what we said, but however, Masterton, who's only having their meeting today, is able to also put clauses in to have things changed.
You'll recall that the consultation document always had a different point. Masterton, their clause was always different.
I find it, I get that, and it's not on you, believe me, Nikki. I know that you would have taken back what we said.
We did
at
discuss
the
it.
table, but it was, it actually, yeah, I'm really disappointed for our residents. We know that, like anything, this is another addiction.
Yep.
And that was what we were wanting to ensure, that we were looking after our communities.
Yeah, I think as Nikki's said, the problem being that the consultation document as it was written was accepted for consultation, so our.
It was, we would, but I'm fairly certain that was due to the fact that it would still be able to be brought up in the deliberations. Now we're told that actually.
No, no.
It was not. No, it was brought up.
Yeah, but not in the context of being able to change anything with it until another 3 years.
There wasn't, from memory, and Councillor Bosley, and Chair, please correct me if I'm wrong, there was support for a more restrictive policy. There wasn't any submissions around changing that particular clause. So while there were submissions there that supported the policy and supported a more restrictive view, it didn't come through as part of the submissions to the hearings process.
So the Mayor and then Councillor Gray.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure why people are quite, or some people on this group anyway, are quite so sort of held up by what was or was not consulted on. I mean, there is a process that goes through, consultation as part of it, decision-making by councils is also part of it. And what I don't understand here is that if we are saying that we too wish to prevent people re-establishing, and Masterton has the same view, that sounds to me as if at least 2/3 of the councils are looking for a similar solution. And I struggle now to understand how
Sorry.
the 2/3.
To be clear, our situation was quite different from Masterton's. Masterton's position was if they had a TAB, for argument's sake, in town and it burnt down, was flooded, closed for whatever reason, that facility or that was unable to then find a shop next door and re-establish. That's their position. Our position was that if that had happened in Masterton and that TAB found itself homeless, we didn't want them to come down the road and set up here. So that the two were quite different. And the view of the policy working group was that the policy or the bylaw in and of itself provided the protection required to prevent that happening.
Also, the relocation could only be for a specified period of time. And was reviewable after, I think it was 6 months.
Yeah, so that's where it landed on debate. That's why you'll see it that clause 4.1 now says venue to permanently re-establish, because it was debated, consulted, hearings, deliberations, that actually the permanent was the sticking point. And if a building is able to be occupied, that there is actually an argument for that business to be able to set up down the road and then for a period of time while that work is done and then re-establish. But there is a time frame on that, which is why it says permanently. Councillor Gray.
Yeah, I think that's what I wanted to do, was to sort of drill down on the details of, reflecting that the council doesn't want to take a risk of having new gambling venues plonked in our district because they've been pushed out from somewhere else. But the chances of that happening are extremely small under this and would be very specific.
That was the position of the working group and the staff who have worked on this policy. Is
Still protected by the bylaw.
that the protection the bylaw in and of itself has prevents that happening anyway.
So, we talked a lot about the thing, and it was particularly paragraph 6.2 and 6.3. Paragraph 6.2 allows people to relocate to Carterton or South Wairarapa. There's no limit on, extraordinary circumstance.
Actually, we did talk about this extensively as well.
And we said, no, we don't want that.
Circumstances, flood, fire, earthquake.
Yeah.
Well, extraordinary circumstances are whatever the applicant can actually prove in a. Well, I'm sorry for the person who's had flood, fire or something at Masterton, but we don't want them here. That's what we said. And they can relocate in Masterton, fine, fill your boots.
We are still protected from that. They can't just automatically come down here.
Oh.
The bylaw still protects them. And if they want to move anywhere, It's still for a specified short period of time.
Okay, so
Doesn't say what that.
Short period of time.
It's just not permanent, which could be 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, so through you two, that's what I believe Masterton will discuss today. I believe that they'll be permanent will have time frame.
So 6.3, Nikki, just
Yeah.
up, 6.3 says examples of such circumstances include exploration of the lease, acquisition of property under the Public Works Act, or site redevelopment. That's not flood, fire, or earthquake.
Yeah.
That's just going about their normal business.
Mm.
Those are the circumstances that 6.2 allows them to move to South Wairarapa. And that's what we talked about. Those were the issues that we were saying, hey, that's just normal business.
Mm.
That's not what we wanted.
Mm. I mean, it was a really big discussion here. That was,
I mean, you know, these are kind of high class tourism towns and suddenly that's set up in the middle of fine wine.
I think the thing, policy still is governed by our regulatory officers, so it's like, it's not just, I've decided to reestablish my business. I'll just wander off and do that. This bylaw is governed by those regulatory officers who have to.
Absolutely.
The pubs aren't really well.
So through you, Chair, it was noted at the hearings that there has been a reduction. So the policy is working. There is definitely a reduction happening in gambling venues across the Wairarapa district. So there was it was good to see that the policy has been in effect over the last 3 years.
I'm just wondering if we've got two things. Is the policy under bylaw?
I think it's no bad use.
Because I think we're getting caught up in policy versus
Yeah,
bylaw.
separate policy, sorry.
So we've got a separate bylaw to this? Yeah. Because this is the policy and then the bylaw is, if you like, the rules, and this is the overarching policy?
Right.
Through you, Chair, it is going to Masterton today, and Masterton may look to resolve to make some changes, and then following that, it will go to Carterton later this month. So it's still in motion between the three councils.
What happens if we say no to this?
I would again, we see if you say no, that we'll kind of hear what happens at Masterton today, and then we will bring it back with any additional changes that Masterton make. And meanwhile, I'm happy to look and see.
I would also add that a large amount of time has gone into this policy through the combined Wairarapa working group. Yeah, if this doesn't pass today, I think we would need to look carefully at how that group is functioning on our behalf and how.
Exactly.
I think we're also kind of protected by 6.3. That gives us a bit of backup as well, protection in terms of where they can relocate to. We can identify that they can't go, for argument's sake, to Featherston based on the decile figures.
Yeah, and that was the argument of the working group, is that actually the policy already provides the level of protection that you're looking for. Councillor Elands.
Thanks, Chair. Certainly appreciate that. There's been a fair bit of effort and time over the last few months going into this discussion. However, I'm concerned with what Nikki had to say. Was that, did I hear correctly that Masterton are meeting to discuss this today, and Masterton want South Wairarapa to agree to whatever they agree in Masterton today without us?
No, they have and have always had a separate clause for them. So all they're saying is that if we amend our own separate clause, please, you need to accept that we've changed our clause that's only for Masterton.
I don't understand that.
Yeah, so they can have only.
So they can change their clause, but they'll change ours.
Because
How we can do this.
we can,
paper?
but if we just wind it back, the draft consultation document was discussed in the various councils. Right off the bat, Masterton said, we want something specific for us. The consultation document was drafted with that in it. it came to this table with
Yep.
their change and amendment in it. We debated it around this table, but that consultation document was approved for consultation with their own separate one in. So it's not that they've somehow got their own way. Magically, they had that in from the get-go that they had a different clause. So there, councillor Gray, did you?
I did. My reading of it looks like there's nothing in this policy that facilitates the growth of the gambling industry within our region and has the, I would say the effect of not only minimising it, but one of the words says it's using a sinking lid.
Has a, yeah.
Reduce the amount. And that even though there is a tiny possibility that under specific circumstances, there could be a temporary shift of a facility under this. It would have to be quite specific circumstances for that.
And we're still protected by the sinking lid, so we can't have an increase of numbers.
So even though it might not be absolutely perfect, it will, in effect, give us the effect that we want for gambling services within our region.
I just make.
Sorry, councillor Macaulay.
I think entirely what you're saying, Rebecca, and it's good that gambling over the whole district is decreasing, but it still seems to me there's a small chance that there could be a redistribution, quite significant temporary redistribution.
No, we have it, the policy, it has a sinking lid as well, so.
Yeah, no, but I'm not saying that. I agree, over the whole area it's going down, right? But in the short term, it doesn't say how long, maybe a couple of years or something. If when somebody lost their lease in Masterton, there could be a shift, or for example, to a square in Martinborough. And that could maybe be for a year or so, and that would have a significant effect on a small town like this. So even though overall the drivers do stop, reduce the amount of gambling in the area, that's a really good goal. But we also don't want to end up with one of the smaller towns having a big clump of it for a year or something.
Each of the towns, and correct me if I'm wrong, so South Waikato and Masterton have their own cap.
Correct.
number. It's not the entire district with a cap, it's each of the towns with a cap.
I believe so, but I will double check.
Right, you're absolutely right, because there is a sinking lid policy for gaming machines, absolutely, and it's really, each town has that.
And are we at our cap?
Yeah. Well, no,
Are we at our cap
we've lost.
where no one else can come in?
I don't, that's not how I read it last.
To reduce that number.
Because if we're not,
It was for the whole.
if we're not at the.
And we were trying to reduce over the whole area. And that's so we need to have it clarified.
Yeah. Are we at our cap? Because if you're talking about a sinking lid policy, we have to be at our cap, so that way no one can come in.
Yeah, it can't be done.
We are.
So all three towns are at their cap.
Yeah, it's not,
Stuff, whatever.
we can go up from here and then we can do something. But where we at is from here on down.
So anyone from Masterton coming can't come in.
Well,
If we're at our cap.
So
Or is it through the district?
actually, the idea is that the policy is slowly getting tighter and tighter with each review. And so one of those issues was the sinking lid cap. So we are starting to see every 3 years, this policy gets tighter and tighter. One of the things that we were discussing during the deliberations as well is around the rise of online gambling as well, and the danger that that's causing our communities, and just being aware that some of these venues, even though they're getting less and less and less, do also provide some assistance in conservation, being aware of who's grant assistance as well for our communities. So it's trying to get that balance between providing venues and I guess gambling places where they've got eyes and ears on people. They may have some policies in place in regards to the amount of money they can withdraw per visit. They may check on them to see how long they're in the gambling venues. So there is some protocol around people who go into the gambling venues. So it's making sure that we have some community wellbeing around that as well, as the policy slowly gets tighter and tighter over each review process.
Yeah, I'm just wondering as to whether a bit of some change in wording might be beneficial, like 6.2 says council may permit a class 4 venue to re-establish in a site. After may, can it be a slash and, may not?
I don't think we are able to change the policy.
No, you can't.
At this point.
No.
Apologies, it was possible solution.
Being straightforward.
Another line.
But, yeah.
Well,
I mean,
the chair, could we possibly have total confirmation that the cap is by the separate districts? Because,
Either the districts
or,
or the individual
or is
towns.
it because this policy covers all three?
yes,
Does that mean that
yeah,
whatever's in Masterton, in that,
It comes to any of our towns.
they say, oh, we're just opening a horse and hound over here, and then we end up with, because that is the cap,
yes,
the district, so that way those machines can come with them.
because I believe last time,
That was the case.
Jolly thing, I understood the cap was for the whole area.
Yeah.
And so then we could, so I just like that to be.
Because that was what the problem.
I think given the questions that are coming through that at this point we're unable to answer, we're going to have to let this lie. With the understanding that we may have to call an extraordinary meeting or if our timelines need that, or it could come to the next committee meeting.
Yeah, and in the meantime, I'll answer some of those questions. And look at some
Sorry.
No, I think you can give people comfortable on the table.
So we've got two choices. We can let it lie on the table. We can put it to the vote and see what we get. Have we got a preference which way we'd like? This,
We'll just make a change on your.
Sorry, councillor.
I just have my view on it and to be quite frank, I think we should put it to the vote to be fair and see where we end up.
All right,
Then I think it's fair and reasonable.
sorry.
Excuse me through the chair. I mean, could it be possible for someone could look it up and we come to the, our meeting, do it later?
We can, but I think councillor Oles is probably right. It should go to the vote and then we can see where to from here, councillor.
Yes, my preference is that it goes to the vote, is defeated, and then gets sent back to this committee so that they understand what this council was expecting.
Great.
Do I have mover please to note that a review of the Wairarapa Class 4 gambling incident, and I think that's the key word, it was just a review. Note that a review of the Wairarapa Class 4 gambling and standalone TRB venues policy has been undertaken. Note that the consultation with the community occurred between 19 Feb and 22 March 2024. Note that the hearings and deliberations were undertaken by the Wairarapa Policy Working Group by 15th of April 2024. And so we'll take those three first. So councillor Gray, councillor Plummer. So all those in favour of those three notes, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, please say no. Okay, councillor Boyd is against those three. So then we've got this substantive recommendation, which is number 4. Approve the recommendations from the Wairarapa Policy Working Group. 1, agree to the amendment of clause 6.1 of the proposed Wairarapa Class 4 gambling and standalone TRB venues as follows. Clause 6.1, council will not grant consent for a Class 4 permanently re-establish at a new site in Masterton District under any circumstances. 2, adopt the Wairarapa Class 4 gambling and standalone TRB venues policy.
Could we separate those out? Yeah, they need to be separate too.
What? So
I'll propose part 1.
So we'll move 4.1, which is the part specific to Masterton. Do I have a
Yeah, I don't mind that, that's fine.
Maynard? All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against? That passes. 4.2, adopt the Wairarapa Class 4 gambling and standalone TAB venues policy. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Gray and a seconder, Councillor Olds. All those in favour, please say aye. Up your hand. So that was Olds, Gray, Woods, Bosley. Nobody on this side. All those against? One more. Everyone on this side then. Thank you. The motion fails. We don't need.
So that particular segment of
But again, I think, like with the last one, where councillor Plummer actually said, this is what we need, you know, like going forward. So
You just give me 2 seconds and we. Do we need to approve number 3, which was the new one from Masterton around the amendments to the.
My recommendation to you would be, if you haven't approved the policy, let's wait to see what comes out of Masterton. And then if we're bringing the policy back, that would be included in the new.
So at this point, do we have any further recommendation to be sent back to the working group?
So I believe that what was being asked was, one, we'd like to know if the cap covers each individual place, like Martinborough, Featherston, Greytown, Carterton, or if it's as a district with this, because
I think it's more likely to be South Wairarapa, Carterton, Masterton, if it is broken down that way. So we just-
because we're wanting to ensure that, and whether or not we're at our cap, which means that, however, if this can't be changed, we've already won't be able to take anyone else.
Yes.
Because that was what our concern was, and we didn't want to have anyone else coming in.
So I suppose that we can, the cap issue by district, but an actual ban moving between districts.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
we can't establish any new venues because we've got a sinking lid policy. So we've got a cap on the number of gaming machines or gambling places. So we can't bring in new stuff.
No, but we'll get those questions.
Then why is it in there?
Well, because it's a case of relocation after a disaster or burn down or whatever.
We don't, it's
That's what I'm saying.
locate here. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That
Yeah.
we'll get those things covered and we'll move from there as and when we can.
Stop for a cup of tea. Just a cup of tea time.
I'm just not, just.
We need to rush.
I need it easy.
Mm.
Right. We have a minute. Yep, so we'll take a 5-minute adjournment to.
10?
Sorry, 10 minutes. Thanks.
Thank you.
You know, able to read the line.
Yeah.
Great.
Right, welcome back from the adjournment. We will carry on into information reports from the CE and staff, starting with the CE's update. Janice.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'll take the report as read. You will note that this report is significantly shorter than previous reports.
Yes.
What I'm trying to do here is to focus on the strategic issues that affect the table rather than it being a delve and dive into operational issues, because we have the portfolio leads now that take those over. The information will be going through the Assurance Risk and Finance Committee in terms of risk monitoring. So this is a significantly shorter report. I would like to take the opportunity to thank Councillor Elins for our day out trip around the district.
Read that, yeah.
It was a real eye opener to see some of the very remote communities that we've got, and the distance they are apart from each other, but as well as the rugged coastline that they live on. That was
Knowledge from his policing days, I would suspect.
it was an intriguing day. The only thing I would say is please don't ask me to take you back to any of them, because I'm not sure I could find them again. That's a journey I'll be making myself over the next wee while when my husband arrives. So we have some key issues around work plan updates, legislative updates around the local waters done well, the fast track consenting and changes to the RMA. Catch up on, obviously the latest one in that space was around the electoral legislation and the Maori wards and constituents bill. That has not gone through yet, so that is still a work in progress. We have a number of central government consultations that are open for submission. One that isn't in here that popped up last week is around emergency support through NZTA. So we're working on that with Carterton at the moment in terms of a future submission. And then the upcoming engagement and consultations that we will be going through with the representation review and the combined bylaw. And then just the update on the Martinborough wastewater treatment plant. So it is quite high level, but moving to a more strategic update as opposed to an operational update. So, any questions?
Any questions?
Thank you, Janice. Very good report.
Thank you.
Very good.
Councillor Macaulay and then Councillor.
Oh, yes, well, mine wasn't a question, but a comment too, but yes, I think it was a really good change of direction with the report and very succinct and strategic. I also really liked the links you had to us to the relevant apps, so we could click in and look at that. That was really very good.
Okay. Councillor Flynn.
Yeah, thanks, Janice, for that report. The RMA changes, they will obviously have an impact on the rights plan and some of the chapters. And I can't tell the council yet what those will be, because obviously the legislation hasn't been written yet, but I'm sure there's particularly SNAs is going to be a topical one. And any of the other things that they're going to say don't do yet.
Yeah.
They're obviously being consulted on, have been consulted on in the district plan. I don't know where we're going to end up on that yet. I think our officers are probably in the same boat as the rest of us going, we're not sure what the next stage is here.
I think through the chair, when we met with the ministers, there was an indication that there were lots of smaller changes that were going to be made, but they would be made in bulk in a mass change, as opposed to keep doing these bits as we go. The last two that came through, I think, were more to do with regional council control on farms than anything that we've got in our purview. But yeah, there are some other changes around SNAs, HPL, those kind of things that they're still working on.
I suppose on that, I could probably let the council know now that our district plan hearings are starting in August. And so August, October, December. And at this stage, they're plotted for 16 days of each month. That just takes us through to Christmas, and then they start again in February, I think is the proposal to start again. So huge amounts of hours and hours of deliberations and reading and things to come yet. So as we go through, no doubt people will be asking you questions and things, but I'll give you as much update, or Russell will probably be better the person to give the updates as we go, but those dates are now pretty much solid. So it's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday of each week in those months. From 9 to 12 each day.
Big commitment, obviously.
Right, thank you for that update and for yours as well, Dennis. Do I have a mover to receive the report? Councillor Olds and seconder, please. Councillor Bosley. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against? Motion is carried. We're moving on to item C2, the Wairarapa Economic Development Strategy Quarterly Update Report. We got you online with us, Matt. We are running a little late to time, so you may have had something else. Do you have? Out of interest, councillors, were there any particular questions relating to the WEDS updates we wanted to ask Matt? Right, Mr. Mayor, did you have something you wanted to say in relation?
Who is it we're expecting online?
Matt from.
Oh, Matt, right. I just had one thing, if that's possible.
One question.
No, it was more
Comment.
an observation.
Thank you.
Yeah. There's a lot going on in here, as you can tell if you read through it carefully. And one of the things I think that sometimes has to be appreciated with economic development is that some of these things are quite slow burning sort of projects.
Carry on, but Matt has.
Yeah, and one of the risks, which is not listed as a risk against a particular activity line, is the risk of impatience and not being prepared to see a longer term investment starting to show results. But anyway, I'll hand over to Matt.
Yeah, and we've had a number of changes to the work plan as well, so I'm sure Matt will talk to that. Welcome, Matt. Good morning. Can you hear us? Give him a moment. Can you hear us this morning, Matt? What we could do, Amy, we could do action report and then circle back to this. Yeah. So if yeah, hopefully Matt may have been able to rectify his. Oh no, there he is. Oh no. Good morning. See you, but can you hear us, Matt? God. Yeah. There's a mute button. Good morning. Doesn't even appear to be able to see us. Actually, no, or hear us. Amy's just communicating. What we'll do, team, is we'll move.
He's connecting to audio now. Oh, there you go.
Good morning, Matt.
Good morning and sincere apologies. Apparently I have to contact my IT administrator. I apologize.
That's okay. We sort of made a bit of a start in your absence. The Mayor opened us with a comment saying that there is a lot happening in your report, and often the key to economic development is patience, which seemed like a good observation. But could you perhaps take your report as read, but give us some of the highlights for the quarter, please?
Yes, absolutely. So yes, there's been a collection of positive things happening, a number of events in partnership with entities like Business Wairarapa or Maori in Business Wairarapa to support local Wairarapa businesses for food and fiber in particular, and also Maori-owned businesses for financial capability. There's been progress in the skills and workforce development side of things with the launch of the healthcare worker attraction initiative, and also the start of the digital fluency assessment program with colleges all over the Wairarapa, which will lead in time to digital skills development and a further assessment later on. Some progress in the water side of things as well through the Resilience Summer Series, and also in our work with iwi and Hapu on establishing economic development priorities for iwi and Hapu. So an approach, a provider, and a time frame have been agreed, and this work is actually starting at the end of this month and will continue into June. There's also the Regional Leadership Committee piece of work on industrial land use survey for the region has identified shortages in every part of the region, including in the Wairarapa. That report is still being finalized, but that's an opportunity for the Wairarapa as there is the possibility to provide room for industries needing to grow. In that sense, the Wainawa Industrial Estate comes to mind. One of the initiatives under the WEDS was to look at the water security of the industrial park, in particular from a process water perspective. There were some additional risks, financial risks identified by Carterton District Council. It's a $3.5 million project with $1,750,000 of that, so 50% provided by Kainoa, the economic development arm of MB, and the rest largely by Carterton District Council and also private industries within the park. So WEDS has agreed to provide a bit of additional funding to the project to make sure that it continues, because it is an opportunity for the whole region in terms of the availability of industrial space for some of those bigger employers in the Wairarapa. I think to the point that the mayor made, yes, there's been a lot happening. We are also taking direction from the forum that the work should focus on fewer and more impactful initiatives, like the water one that I talked about just now. The work on dark skies continue, led by Destination Wairarapa with the establishment of a steering group. That's going slightly beyond Q3 reporting, but we are starting to look at the next financial year and what the priorities might be, again, in alignment with the direction from the forum that it should be a shorter list of bigger priorities. So there was a prioritization workshop a couple of weeks ago, and there will be another forum meeting in a few weeks to look at what those bigger ticket items might be looking forward. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Matt just mentioned a prioritisation workshop that WEDS ran. I was able to attend that with the other council's representatives across the region, and I said at the time, and I'll say it in this forum too, that one of the best facilitated workshops I've attended. The outcomes and the input from the group were very clear, and it was a great workshop. So I'm excited to see what spills out of that and where WEDS takes the work program from there. So thanks for that, Matt. Any questions from the group for Matt?
Very comprehensive.
No, sorry, Councillor Maynard.
I'm just wondering, Matt, I just see that the tourism sector has 25,000 in its budget, and and it just says dark skies, but I guess the tourism sector is such a major part of the South Wairarapa. And so I'm just wondering there, because it's got allocated 25, but yeah, and then 40,000, and I'm just wondering, is that sufficient? Because it's not just the South Wairarapa as well, it is the Wairarapa, and tourism seems to always get a little bit less.
Yeah, so this is just the WEDS contribution to that.
Oh, so it's just the contribution. Thank you. Cool, thank you.
Thank you. No further questions. Thank you, Matt, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Takes us on to action items report. Any updates to report from the officers, please?
Really.
Amy's just telling me that action item 133 should read as actioned. That is the request to urgent follow up with Wellington Water to ensure that the stormwater drainage on Brandon Street is prioritised for clearing, and that came out of our last meeting. So that is in fact actioned, not opened. Councillor Gray.
So there have been, in addition to action item 157 from Russell O'Leary, it's gotten here about having the information added onto the deliberations report for the enhanced annual plan, which has happened.
I'm sorry, action 157. Love that. Anybody else? No? Do I have a mover, please, to receive the report? Okay, and a seconder. Thank you, Violet. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, say no. Motion is carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to my report. Item D1. Fairly brief report. Three recommendations, sorry. Firstly, obviously, to receive the report. Second is an amendment to the terms of reference for council and committees. And the third is to note that Nerida has resigned from the Māori Standing Committee. Sorry. Yeah. But we get to keep her in a whole other.
Yeah.
So yay. Yes, and to be clear, that is because we have Nerida as our Ko Māori for council. And therefore she's not able to be on a committee and in a employed role. So that is why we're doing that. And we need to change the terms of reference here. And just a small change of reference to give the employment committee, CEO employment committee, the power to act and to deal with variations to the chief executive's contract as required. And that's simply just to make sure that that can be done in a timely.
Can I just
Any questions? Thank you, Colin.
just on the delegated authority with the C's review committee, just that bullet point at the bottom, deal with the variations to the chief executive's contract as required. Is that something that the committee have requested to do as the committee rather than as a council with regard to variations?
No, that has come through from a review of the terms of reference and making sure that that can be done on and like I say, in a timely manner. So there hasn't been a request direct from the committee, no.
Okay.
Just picking up on the same point, should the words deal with all, should it actually be approve?
We'll deal with, I agree, yeah.
Should be considered.
Consider and approve.
Yeah.
Councillor Maynard.
Or just consider. Consider, because you may not approve all of them, so.
And we don't want to deal with.
And or approve.
Yeah, and or approve.
I got dealt with at boarding school.
So it's not playing very fast.
Councillor Maynard.
In the, so the membership and composition, are you missing someone? Because there's, is there meant to be 4 membership plus the chair? Because it's just that councillor Macaulay's name's on there twice, so I'm just wondering if there's actually meant to be 5 or if there's just meant to be 4.
Clear once as the chair.
Chair, and then she's under the membership. Yeah. So it's, so I'm just wanting.
It's 4, but councillor Macaulay is the chair.
Yeah, so maybe it doesn't need to be.
Yeah, and so no, it is just the 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's also something else too, because we have decided to not use external consultant, but that's back through another change, don't we?
So you've chosen not to use an
Yes,
external
yes,
consultant.
yes. Well, not to necessarily use one.
An external consultant may be co-opted.
Yes,
So
maybe.
Yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
That needs to stay
Yeah.
at some
Oh,
point.
so it
May.
Absolutely.
All right,
yeah,
yes, yeah, definitely,
yeah.
maybe, but yeah.
And you can
Not-
choose whether to use one or
Yes,
not,
that's right,
but at
we're
least you
not
have the option,
Yes,
yeah.
that's right.
So no, I think that's all correct. Right. Any further questions on that? Do I have a mover? Thank you, councillor Gray, and a seconder, councillor Elams. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. All those against? Motion is carried. Members' reports. We have our infrastructure portfolio update from councillor Elams, infrastructure portfolio lead. Would you like to add anything to your report?
I'll just briefly go through it, but the first point I'd like to add is that both some good news is that Janice has now permanently employed Robin Wells as our water advisor on a permanent basis rather than being a temporary employee or contractor in the past. I don't know what position she was in, but it's great that Robin is now on board permanently with us. Continue to help us go work along the path with our water reforms and our relationships with Wellington Water and other councils within the Wairarapa and the Greater Water region. So that's awesome. Thanks a lot for that, Janice. So I take my report as being read. I just want to sort of briefly cover over a few of those points. The first section, roading services, refers to the workshop that Stefan took us through middle of last month. I think that's a good news story. The work that has gone on in that space for council moving forward for the next 3 years with Fulton Hogan, and also the work that has been done with the proposed 3-year budget and plan with Waka or New Zealand NZTA. I think, yeah, as I said before, I think that's a good news story, and we need to sort of get that out amongst our community to let people know that council have been listening and taken on board the feedback that residents and ratepayers have been giving them in that space, and onwards and upwards. The second point is water services, where I've discussed the reports and the agenda, the appendixes at the rear of the report. A lot of those reports have come from Wellington Water. What was really interesting for me was that Featherston Wastewater Consent Quarterly Report. And there was on page 4, there was information in the photo illustrating the quality of the wastewater which had entered dissolved air flotation pilot plant trial, which Stefan said is in place with plant. So that's exciting to see what the end result is, that once that effluent or that wastewater goes through that process and comes out the other side. Next point I'd like to make, the CapEx March report. We're on page 1 detailed that the meters of pipe laid or renewed, while it was only wastewater, it shows that less than 180 meters of wastewater renewal pipes were laid in the year. And then following that, projects on hold, the Featherston Water Main Renewals Water Project has been parked for the remainder of financial year 23-24 due to funding constraints. Bit of a discussion with that with Charles and Adam earlier, where Charles talked about the renewals and we're not keeping up. And I think, yeah, that's a risk period, a risk factor going forward. Personally, I think we need to be prioritising more referrals. We attended that Wellington Water Workshop in Greytown last year, where they explained to us that 26% of our 209 kilometres of pipe have been assessed as critical, and we need to be replacing average 2.6 kilometres of pipes annually for the next 30 years. However, we're currently only replacing 1.2 kilometres. It's a struggle, and we have to weigh that up with our increased rates. And I suppose that is the decision that we, as governors around this table for our district, have to make. What else have I got here? It's about that in the water space. The amenity space. It's good to see that Martinborough Square internal lighting project will be commencing in early May, while the tenders for the South Wairarapa pedestrian lighting project, which will include the pedestrian crossing lighting around the square. The tender for that project is out at the moment and will be closing in the next week or so. So progress is moving and occurring in that space. I'd also like to thank the CE along with Stefan for the work that was put into resolving the issues with Mr. Kentrell at Reading Street, who came to one of our meetings back in March and spoke about the issues he had there. And Stefan has made comment in his partnership report further along about a lessons learned process will occur. So thanks so much for all the work that you've done, you and your team, Stefan, have done pulling your partnerships report together. Certainly appreciative of those dashboards and the information that's come through from Wellington Water for me to dive into and sort of pick some topics out.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Any questions for Councillor Elams this morning on his incredibly thorough report?
It's actually very good, thanks.
Very good report.
It's something that's come to mind reading his report, and a great report, and I really commend you about bringing the flat replacement thing to everybody's attention. So it's now on record, which is great. But the roading one, Colin mentioned something to me the other day. I noticed the other day with all the works going on State Highway 53 Bridge. What's the road called, Colin? It's the end of around your house.
Right.
And Stefan, you might want to have a look at this because what's happened with State Highway 53 closed, there's a detour that comes down number 1 line, which is great if they turn off on number 1 line. But a lot of the heavy trucks are not turning off on number 1 line, they're turning off by the tin hut.
Yeah.
And they're coming along that little road, and it's actually going to cause massive problems to the road.
Yeah, it's pretty hectic.
It already is. So I just wonder whether Tim could get out there and actually put a thing, no heavy trucks through here or something or other that just must go down number 1 line. It's going to a big cost to fix this in the future.
Yeah, that's already busted.
Yeah.
It's looking pretty bad down there. Like, so that is.
Some big road, I haven't had potholes.
I thought I'd raise it rather than Colin because.
Thank you for raising
This is potholes still before the other residents will be experiencing a conflict.
But we want to share the potholes around.
Just
Actually, pothole.
2 comments. One, picking up exactly the point there that people may recall some time ago when work was going, or traffic was going really, really slowly between Marsden and Carterton. A whole lot. It's not too bad now. A whole lot of people started using the parallel and wrecking that road. And in fact, Carterton Council did put up prohibitions on who could use it and who could and which way they could go, etc. So I mean, that's just following that precedent. Just possibly give some sort of notice that with respect to the last paragraph on page 93 about Mr. Kent issues, and it says there that that they have been resolved. In fact, I've had an email from his wife saying that the issues are not resolved, but that he has had a letter saying that she and her husband have agreed to a whole lot of modifications that they have not agreed to. So there is still some ongoing tensions there.
Sorry, just to can I just clarify, Mayor Martin, and you've forwarded that on to our CEO? So you've already let her know, so if that could be passed on, so in that way, because our CEO has been doing the work.
Yeah, I just like to check that people aren't
Well, we don't know what we
having
don't know.
concerns before I.
Do I have a mover to receive councillor Elam's infrastructure report? Thank you, Violet, and councillor Gray as seconder. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, please say no. Motion is carried. Councillor Olds, your appointment report for the Wairarapa Trails Action Group.
I've sort of, I'll take it as read because I sent through the minutes from that meeting there in progress, but I just want to make a thank you out to James. He's been working very closely with the group and all the interested parties and done a wonderful job. And so full praise to our James, our what's the role, partnership and yes.
Manager of projects and
Yeah.
community operations.
Yeah, really appreciate his efforts there, and he certainly has built up really good rapport with people concerned. So I just want to make that comment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for councillor Olds, please? No? Do I have a mover then to receive this report? Councillor Plummer and councillor Elams as seconder. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, please say no. The motion is carried. We are now going to move into public excluded. Do I have a mover to enter public excluded this morning? Councillor Gray. Okay, so councillor Olds will second. All those in favour of moving into public excluded, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, please say no. The motion is carried. The reason for moving into public excluded because the general subject matter the general subject of each matter to be considered while the public is excluded have specific grounds under section 481 of the Local Government Official Information in Meetings Act. And the reasons for passing the resolutions are as followed. Public excluded minutes. 2024. Good reason to businesses under section 2H and section 481A. The second topic of conversation will be the chief executive KPIs, and good reason to withhold exists under 7.2A and section 48A. The resolution is made in reliance on section 48(1), and the reason for passing this resolution is the withholding of the information is necessary to protect the privacy of natural persons, including that of deceased persons. And the withholding of information is necessary to enable local authority holding the information to carry out without prejudice or disadvantage commercial activities. We'll now turn off the live stream. And note that the